Hello there, hello and welcome to another little stream here, another live stream with me, Bo. I'm gonna fix the mic here. Hello there and welcome to a little hangout this afternoon here in my studio. Not that much is gonna happen, you know, we're gonna hang out, talk a bit, I'll answer some questions, we'll just hang out and have a good afternoon, drink some coffee, and hopefully that will be entertaining. If you're watching this after it aired live, don't worry if you don't sit all of it through, but if you do, let me know. It is kind of interesting to hear. So yeah, welcome to the live stream. Or yeah, it's of course pre-recorded. No, but welcome here. I've been telling you guys that I'm gonna live stream as much as possible during these isolation times. And yeah, we're still not on any like total lockdown in Sweden, but I'm doing my part, isolating myself, trying to stay away as much as possible from people. It's actually not that difficult when you're a synth nerd, to be honest. Yeah, the stream is pre-recorded, says Reed Austin. Yeah, it's pre-recorded. Yeah. Hey James, good to see you here in the stream as well. Hope everything is coming through nicely. Richard says he needs some coffee. Yeah. Northern Cat, good seeing you as well. Coffee is dripping as we speak. That means that you have some kind of drip coffee brewer, which is the right kind. John Kalmar, good morning from the US. Wait, John, are you from US? What? Mind blown. I thought you were Swedish. Joshi, good seeing you. And let's see here. A Galan is here as well. Navid, Sonic Neutronic, Luigi. Yeah, Tim, good seeing you here as well, buddy. So hope everybody's having a good day. I have been out and about today. I felt I needed to get out. It was such a lovely day. I was working in the studio before lunch, finishing up my next release. It's called Frankly. It's out now for patrons. So if you really want to, you can become a patron on the music tier, I think it is. And yeah, it's out now. It's the house track that I played you before, and it's coming out in, I don't know, maybe a couple of days, a week, I'm not sure. I'm gonna do some kind of launch thing when it's out public. There will probably be some free downloads as well on Bandcamp and stuff like that. So yeah, I was working on it, mastering it, and you know how it is. You do like I realized that this is like a process that I've started to develop. I do a mix. So mix number 1. And I master it, like do rough master number 1. And then I listen to it for a while, and then I realize how shit it sounds, and I realize that I can't fix it in the master because it's my mix that is bad. So I go back and I mix it again, and then after I've mixed it, maybe I do like 5 more mixes or something. I don't know, I lost track. I think I was on number 11, the last export. No, 12 was the last export. So number 12, okay. So and then I did 5 masters on it, slightly different. I use Ozone mostly nowadays, because since Ozone 9 they introduced plugins. You can load in plugins into it, which is very nice. Not that I do it a lot, but yeah, sometimes you just want that EQ that you're used to, or Waves plugin or whatever. So yeah, that's nice. So yeah, I was sitting with that, which was a lot of fun. Navid asks, Ableton is your DAW? No, to be honest, I'm kind of a DAW agnostic, I guess. DAW, I don't stick with one thing. It's the nature of my job here on the channel that I test a lot of things. So I've tested. So I'm, historically, I've been using Cubase. I'm a Cubase guy. But then I started making a lot more music again, 2010 maybe or something, I don't remember. And I bought Machina Studio, the hardware, and I didn't really realize that it was also a DAW. So I got into it, and I'm using. Let's see, can I switch the camera angle? Wait, this one. Yeah, no, this. So you see here, here's my like Machina setup, and we will actually, I asked Native if they could send over a Machina Yam. I have never actually used one in the studio, so I'm gonna do a stream, I think, with the Machina Yam, because I felt like now with the Machina centric setup that I'm working on a couple of tracks now, I think that it would be a really fun time just testing it out. I think that for like electronic music, you know, pattern-based stuff, it could be fun. But anyway, so I've been working in Machina, and I tested Bitwig, I actually really like Bitwig, but there's a few things that my old brain struggled with. Like the MIDI implementation is a little bit different. I can't explain it technically, but it's different if I understand them correctly. But yeah, it's a really good DAW. It's very well designed. I think that it's definitely more well thought out than Ableton. It's like built by some people who worked at Ableton, I think. So they've improved a lot on it. And then I started using Ableton more as well. I made 2 or 3 tracks. One released, renewal, made it in Ableton, and I got 2 more tracks on the way that I'm making in Ableton Live. And I got Logic as well. I got it in a bundle, but yeah, Logic is the DAW. Logic is what Final Cut Pro is to pro video makers. Like it's a really good DAW, and Final Cut Pro, I use Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro is a really good editing software. It's just that it feels like when Apple took over that they're not updating it. Like it's not really. I mean, maybe it's coming. Maybe it's coming now with the new updates, but it just felt that it lagged behind. I know a lot of people who like, yeah, I moved over to Cubase or something because the updates were coming more frequently and a lot of functions were added more quickly. But yeah, so I tried many of the DAW. Studio One. I got Studio One when I got the mixer, and that's actually quite nice as well. It's well designed. So yeah, very all over the place with my DAW. Let's see here. What's up, DivKid? Mr. Ben is here. Hey Ben, you wanna jump in? Say hi? You wanna do a little impromptu appearance on the Discord? Let me know in the chat if you want to. You can just jump in the Discord. Yeah, I'm having a good day, Div. Ben and I have been talking about I finished up. Long story short, I finished up the mix and master of my new track. I think it sounds good. It's always a little tricky, like it's not perfect. The room is not ideal, but so I finished up the track. This how do you say, before lunch. Finished it up, and it's on its way to the stores. So Ben and I, we were discussing the artwork earlier today. Yeah, it's one of those things, like you want nice, an album artwork, but it's also like, for me, it's not really, I haven't found a way that it's fun, like it's a bit of a chore, like it's not where my passions are dealing with it. So I actually have a friend who made, a childhood friend who made the artwork for Frankly, who made a little drawing. It's supposed to be me, but it's cool anyway. Dirty Ableton, says Reed. Podcast Edge, good. Yeah, Podcast Edge says, Frankly, final mix 006, final series, the final 00, really, really final. Yeah, it's something like that. The final mix. Final master version 8 test. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's how it works. That's how it works. Yeah. Okay, Ben. Okay, so we got Ben coming on. That's awesome. Let me see, Ben. I'm gonna go ahead and fire up the Discord, and let's see. Do I need headphones? I need headphones. Do I have headphones? Yes. I have many pairs all over the place. Used these a lot. DT770 Pro for mixing and stuff. I'm going to talk more about it in a video about headphones. Do you want a video about headphones? You're getting one. regardless of what you want. But anyway, the DT77 Pros. At first, I thought that they sounded awful. I was like, a lot of what I do sound like shit in these cans. And then I realized that in fact, when I mix in these cans and it sounds good in these cans, it sounds really good in everything else. So I think that there's some magic going on there. No, but seriously, I've used them like really as reference listening. Let's see here. So I'm gonna jump in here. Let's see here. Where is Ben? Let's see. So Ben, jump in the waiting. You see live in the Discord. You can jump in the community Discord. You can jump in the section called live. There should be just a chat there somewhere, I think. Let me see. Or can I drag you? I'm so confused. No, wait. I'll give you a role. So, okay, Ben. So you got. You can jump in. Yeah, waiting room. You can. Let's see. Let's move us. Hello. Wait. I have turned everything.
And jump in.
Yeah. Hello.
Let's see. Let's move us.
Okay, Ben. Turn off the stream in the background.
Wait. I have turned everything. And jump in. Hello.
Hello, I've muted the video if you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Can't you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yes, very distant sounding, but yeah.
Okay, that's weird. That's weird. Okay, wait. I'm just gonna fix the... Let's see here. Can you just... Ben, tell us about your breakfast, okay?
I didn't eat breakfast. I had a cup of English breakfast tea. That's what I had for breakfast. But beyond that, it was my birthday yesterday, so we had a curry.
Oh, congratulations!
It was amazing. So, and there was some left. So I've had curry for lunch, no breakfast, but yeah, all good.
So I'm just gonna see here. Okay, am I still very quiet for you? Let me just turn myself up a bit. Okay, is it better now, Ben?
It sounds like this is taking your default computer audio as opposed to a microphone.
Okay. Give me a second.
It may sound the same for
now,
me.
Is it better now?
Yes, that's it.
Yes. All right. Good. Yeah, I was a little confused there. Okay.
Do I sound like I'm on default audio, or do I sound like a mic?
It sounds good. So so Ben, happy birthday!
Thank you.
So how do you wanna tell the world how young are you?
How young? How old? Young? Whichever way you want to look at it. I was 31 yesterday.
That's nice.
I think I have a more haggard face than 31. I think it looks like the recent YouTube years have certainly aged me a bit more.
So basically, I'm your bigger brother.
Yeah. I'm usually the baby in the group.
Yeah.
But,
the baby in the group.
Baby, yeah.
So let's see here. I think did somebody jump in here? Let's see. Oh, Richard is online as well. Hello, Richard. Good seeing you, Simon. What's up? Good seeing you, Simon. The Magpies in the chat as well. Yeah. So So what are you up to in these days? These weird times that everybody that we call them.
I've isn't why I came on the stream. I wasn't trying to hijack, but just put a video up of a new dual ADSR, and there's a video I did a while ago. Dual ADSR was like this actually, that sat unlisted for some time until delays in production came together. Chinese New Year in February always froze PCB production for everybody, not just the synth world. So people work around that, but of course the virus has delayed things even further and getting panels made. And
what's this the dual ADSR thing?
Yeah, so this I don't think was delayed, but I made the video early So they had it to show the shops and the resellers and things like that. The one that I also think was going to release today, but I said I really don't want to put 2 videos up today. Can I wait till tomorrow? I'd made a video for someone else of a nice new oscillator that should be in all the stores tomorrow. And I'm just filming another module. Of course, it's all modules. What would you expect? That he's releasing on Friday. Totally blown away by this thing. I'm not going to say what it is. So yeah, modules. That's about it, really.
That's awesome.
I'm used to isolating, to be fair. I think quite a lot of us we're kind of next level hermits and loners. So
yeah, I think like the top tier belongs to the gamers. Like they're like the top level people who are good at staying inside. Like, you know, and I think just below that are the synth cave hermits.
Gamers are used to much longer sessions potentially.
Yeah.
I imagine some people sit and stream and play online games longer than I sit and play a synth.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I know Simon is in the chat, and I know he's been talking about his Minecraft server. I think that's Simon, you're in the chat. So Simon, can you tell us in the chat? Can you join your server with a Nintendo Switch? You know, is your server on like one of those, how do you say, like cross-play platforms? Because I was like yesterday I was like sitting there and like, should I go and make music, or should I just download Minecraft on my Switch Lite and just play Minecraft for like 5 hours?
So how about, and I imagine
do you have a webcam, by the way?
I have a webcam.
Yeah, let me call you here on Skype, and we can see if I can share your.
Well, we'll try it because I'm curious if it works out.
Yeah. Why not? Somebody dual tracks asked where you are, so let's see if we can make it work.
Yeah, boot me off Discord.
Let's see here. I'm so confused. I'm so bad at Discord. Where is Ben? Where did he go? Let's see here. Let's see here. I'm so confused. There you are. Okay, yeah. Let's see here. Let's call you up. Let's see if he can answer. All right, so we have Ben, DivKid, he's joining in here and we're testing. Okay, there we go. All right, Ben, now we can hear you.
Aha, I can turn on my camera. I didn't even know Discord did this.
Yeah, so let's see if this works.
Every day is a school day, as they say.
There we go. All right, and let me just add, let me see here. Oh, there you are, beautiful man. So let's see, I'm just gonna
I've just had the garden clipper haircut. Sitting out in the garden so the hair doesn't go all over.
All right, so there we go. Look here, we got Ben here on screen. We're doing a bit of a screen in screen here. Something like that. I don't know. Down here maybe. Yeah, down here.
Put me in a corner somewhere. I'll stay quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Shut up.
It doesn't look anywhere near as nice as your space, but I've got draping things. These blinds are terrible for video because my modular is set up completely opposite. Mm. So anything with a screen on is getting reflections, which is really annoying. I'm in a very non-ideal space, but I'm trying to kind of baffle the light with draping things over and getting there. Super DIY. And after recently moving out of some studio space that I was using, I've had to bring a lot of gear in here. So there's super storage room of the vintage stuff you don't care about. So kind of stacked up behind me.
So I don't want to out you here. Is there something about your studio space and the future of it that you can tell us about? Or is that
well,
secret?
We were set to build some new studio space and extend the house. The virus has completely blown out of the water. In 2 ways. We were going to be doing it this summer, and the builders had another project on the go. The family before us, which is another big 2 or 3 month project, was going to be effectively knocking their house down to the structural walls. So they were going to move to Spain. Now, when the virus started and no one was on lockdown, they said, well, we can't really move to Spain, do our job later in the year. So it's like, great, we're going to start right around now, actually, in around a week. And then now we can't start because builders' merchants are closed. Building work can continue in the UK if it started, as far as I know, because it's 2 or 3 people outside a house. You know, you can't do that from home in terms of working from home. But now I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we'll get past this and the other family that were before us will have their job because they'll be itching to get it done, and then it'll push us into next year. I don't know. But the teaching space I was using, I'm not anymore, which is where this stack of gear has come from. I've lost the room that I was using.
Okay, yeah.
Well, not lost. I chose to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been a really cool new space. But
yeah. I mean, it will happen. I hope
it will. It should. You know, whenever this passes, it will. Yeah, it will happen. How's Bojo doing? Someone says in the chat. Boris Johnson was rushed to intensive care. Our prime minister.
I was reading. How is Bo doing? Are you still in ICU? And I was like, wait. yeah. Okay, Bojo. Yeah.
We would call you Bojo, but I think it's a quite derogatory term relating to Boris Johnson.
Okay,
you probably wouldn't want that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Bobo works best. So I was thinking. Just a random question, Ben. Like, because I'm so. This is where I'm at in my headspace right now. What is like? Because do you master some of your own music, or how do you do it? Yeah,
I prefer working on other people's. To be honest, I think a second set of ears is always useful, even if just as a reference, not having a trusted set of ears. I started mastering when the DivKid thing started. Really, if not a little bit before, when I was in university, going back to maybe 2010, I think the DivKid thing started, pre-modular videos and YouTube and things like that.
Okay.
I used to master all the stuff our label put out. We had an online label doing kind of modern electro and techno, and we released a lot. So it was a real learning experience for trying to get tracks mastered well and up to standard, and as bigger name DJs started to play them, it seemed successful, as it were. So yeah, I still do mastering. Most of my commercial mastering work is in the hip-hop world, as opposed to electronic or modular. I've done some modular albums and things for people, more experimental audio, but it tends to be hip-hop, more on a commercial end.
Okay.
Modern kind of UK rap.
What do you use for, like, how is your process? What is that like?
I'm pretty happy with anything generally. Here, and especially now I'm not in that other studio space, I don't consider coming out of the computer to be of much benefit, because I know that all my A to D and D to A isn't super top spec, so I feel like staying in the computer is a safer thing for me to do. It's obviously then fully recallable as well, rather than trying to come out to a piece of hardware.
Oh, yeah.
It tends to be more about the process than what the actual thing is. I'm working on some music at the moment with Heimbach's isolation loops.
Oh, okay, cool.
And because I want to give the project away, the whole thing was produced in Ableton, all on the default instruments, just with Heimbach's audio. So I can give, say, my patrons a project folder that they're going to have really it. As long as they've got Ableton, they're going to have everything. I've mastered it in Logic. Now, not to get into a debate of which one sounds better, but I like the different headspace. I like opening a project and not having soft synths and samplers in front of me and things that are going to potentially distract from...
Everybody knows that Ableton sounds the best.
Well, traditionally, it would be the argument would be the other way.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway,
Pro Tools. Everything sounds better in Pro Tools.
But it tends to just be about the process. Yoad Nevo, who works with Waves, and people may know him from Sonic Talk, I remember watching a video years back with him saying he would start with a limiter, which is usually the thing at the end of the chain. And he was saying, you know, he had a modern pop production up, electronic drums, vocals, a couple of acoustic instruments, maybe piano and guitar. And he was saying if like the kick drum is just pushing through too much, why even try and shape it with anything else if you can just see that there's a peak that just needs kind of pulling down? So he started with a limiter and said, I'm just going to take like 2 dB off this, just to get rid of that like too big of a transient that the kick drum has. Of course, for you or I, where we've produced the music, you could go back into the mix and start to tweak that, but Yoad as a mastering engineer didn't have that luxury. So that's always been something that I've looked at. Like, does this just need some shaping of the transients and the initial volume before I even really get into thinking about it? It's only ever a couple of dB. I wouldn't start going hard at the start.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like mastering. The mastering part is probably the thing that I've spent least time on developing, like as a craft. But I'm really feeling like it's oftentimes very, very small things you do, very subtle things. I mean, hopefully, with my new track, I felt like I felt I've gone back to the mix instead and try and fix it in the mix rather than do too much in the master. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if I've still got patches up from things, I'll go right back to making the sound. Even if I had a soft synth, in fact, it's very easy to just recall it. But things like, I was talking about compression in modular with someone the other day, and they were talking about how the shape of the sound just isn't fast and snappy enough. I said, well, if you've still got the patch, look at the decay times. Could you reduce them? And then they're going to be snappier. I said, it's not so much the length of the note, it's kind of the shape. I'm like, well, do you have a curve control? Because something like maths will have a voltage that falls, but you can make it do a really nice exponential fall or a linear fall. And that's kind of what the mastering is doing. If that's the shape, it'll kind of curve it in, well, what the compression is doing anyway. So I tend to be the same as exactly what you said. If I can go back and fix it somewhere else, it's less heavy-handed to go into a single track and make adjustments. But yeah, small, subtle things. So once I'll then tend to go EQ after limiting. I'll do that mid-side and take out any low end from at least under 100 hertz on the sides. Bass is not a very directional thing, so it just doesn't. And most things sum to mono with the low end anyway.
Yeah.
Traditionally, and way higher than 100 hertz, when you press to vinyl, if you've heavy bass information, if you think this is the trough that the needle sits in on a vinyl record, if there's a big bump as it's going, like a big right-hand bass bump, could literally throw the needle out of the record, which is why people say you don't want low end in the sides, and you also don't want it to be too loud. You don't want those peaks to be throwing the needle around. It's why you used to see, pre the days of having better turntables, the trick was to put a penny on top of the head and the cartridge on the arm on the turntable, just to get some weight on top of the thing. We've a really cheap turntable downstairs, one of those kind of sub £100, looks like it's a lovely briefcase. It looks like furniture more than a turntable, but the turntable's terrible. To get it to actually play anything properly, I have to go put a penny on top of the cartridge. But yeah, EQ, general shaping at that stage, early on. Does it generally, like broad strokes? So does it feel dull? Does it feel bright? Is the bass overwhelming? And then sweeping really thin little bands around, really tight cues on EQs to try and find really offending frequencies. A friend of mine, Ben Ziapor, that I used to play in a band with, worked at Universal Records for all their library and TV music. And he mastered one of the tracks for the band that we were in together. And he said, I pulled 12 dB of 200 hertz out of this mix. And we were like, what? Like 12 dB? Like you took this huge, that cave out of the lower mids? And he was like, listen to it. And we were like, you're right. This thing really hits now. Like, why? He said, I don't know. Maybe we just didn't hear it in the room when we were mixing. Or so it's trying to find those things best I can. And then once it's in a nice shape, EQ shape, move on to compression. But I do it in multiple stages, at least 2 compressors. Reason being, and I'm never trying to do it by the numbers, but just to give an example, if you wanted 4 dB of reduction, so you could add 4 dB of level. I always find it nicer to do 2 dB of reduction twice. than one, with the reason being the first compressor can have, say, an open attack, 30 milliseconds and up, and a faster release, so the transients are coming through, and then the second one can have a faster attack and a slower release.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
so you get a nice reduction in the same band, so to speak, or in the same frequency.
Yeah, just full broadband compressors. It's not a multi-band thing.
Okay,
but having the attack and release times, they're both responding differently, as opposed to one thing just kind of pulling.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like how many people do like vocal mixing with, like, you might do a, but I guess with vocal mixing you often do, I don't know if I remember it correctly, but you do like this, often do a snappy, one snappy compressor and one more slow.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. And depending on what type of compressor, things like 1176s traditionally can do a ton of gain reduction and still sound great, especially on a vocal. And also using the two different types. So if that's, say, Logic's default compressor, which isn't necessarily the best, but it's a good compressor, having like an opto compressor and effect compressor, they sound different as well.
Exactly.
And beyond then, it's just any additional shaping, really. Some things want widening. The isotope tools are great. Maybe parallel processing. If I feel like it wants some saturation and clipping and a lot of energy adding, I like doing that in parallel. It just feels nicer to have a more of a blend than, because you can usually push it further. If I put, like, Logic's overdrive is great with low drive amounts for adding a lot of presence to things across the whole range. I don't mean presence like high frequencies, but having more dBs of drive and then having that parallel just somehow seems nicer to balance the transients and how it's hitting.
Yeah.
At that stage, I'll start to look at average kind of levels. I use the Ulean free meter. Minus 14 LUFS is about standard for most streaming platforms. If it's just a single, it'll come in around that. I know some people still want stuff a bit louder. If it was a client, I'd get into discussing that with them. But yeah, I tend to start metering at that stage. Everything's so far, and it's quick as well. I usually put it on and I start straight away. I won't listen to the track outside of the project. It goes straight into, say, into Logic, if that's what I'm using. I press play, and it's like trying to get all those gut reaction feelings in quickly.
Yeah.
And then go back and fine tune. You may realize that, oh, I was too heavy handed because the rest of the song's quite soft, or it does get louder, so really I need to back this off. But yeah, isotope tools are great. Like I said, with this Heimback thing I'm working on, I just used all Logic's defaults.
I feel that you can go. My basic philosophy at all has always been like that. You can do so much with just the stock stuff. Of course, like something like the Fab Filter stuff and waves and isotope sounds really good, and very flexible tools. But I've always felt like I've done a lot of mastering projects just using Cubase and the default stuff, and they've really improved a lot. Also, they've added like a nice multiband compressor and so on, which is really nice. But I tend to nowadays I feel I've taken a little bit of a step back and tried to, I felt like a couple of my latest songs, I felt I was a little too too heavy-handed with the mastering. Like maybe I pushed, compressed it a little bit too much. It's a risk. You take away some of the energy, you make it feel like a little dull in some way. So with the new release, I did a brick wall limiter, not brick wall limiter. How do you say? I don't know the English word. Just cut under 20 dB, under 20 hertz.
A high pass filter.
Yeah,
under 20 dB.
Yeah, what is that called? Is it called brick wall when it's like the setting? Like, what's that called in English?
Are you thinking a limiter for leveling?
No, I'm thinking like because you have the different curves for the EQ.
Oh,
when you have like
you had a high pass filter. So
yeah, exactly, high pass, but extremely like sharp. It's called something inside of isotope, the sharpest one, like that is just cutting everything under, like sharply under.
It's just not needed, and there's so much energy in anything under about 50 hertz that it just completely eats the response of the compression afterwards. And barely anything is going that low down.
Yeah.
You know,
I do it because it's
no.
like it's something I just learned. It's like a how you say, it's something I learned a long time ago. Like, yeah, cut everything under 20, everything over 20. And then I did EQ, and I did the dynamic EQ. I actually didn't do any, like, I tried and avoid too much compression. I think I did a lot of that stuff in Machina when I was working on the track, like trying to add compression to the different sounds, the stems. And I did the maximizer. And before the maximizer, I used a new one, the bass focus plugin or function.
Okay.
I think it's. I'm not entirely sure. To me, it feels like it's working with transients. You add like a little bit more of a clearer transients for the bass frequencies, but I'm not entirely sure what it does. It just brings out the bass a little bit more.
A nice thing for that, as you mentioned multiband earlier in the bass focus, if we didn't speak about multiband compression, I don't always use it, but sometimes do. But when I do, and the thing that got me into it, if you had one broadband compressor, let's just say 2-to-1 ratio, very simple settings. If you have a multiband, but every single band is set the same, it just becomes frequency dependent. So instead of, because what I first did with multiband and why I think I still don't use it, because I turned myself off from kind of incorrectly using it or overusing it to try and get dance mixes really loud for clubs, was trying to set all the bands differently. But if you set them all the same, it's just more responsive, because if there's a lot of low mid energy building up, the low mids will be the one that pull while the rest of it stays the same. So it can be a more musical way to reduce some gain.
Oh yeah.
And it's nice when it's subtle, because it becomes that, it's a bit like the dynamic EQs from Brainworks and companies like that, where you can make EQ that then also starts to nudge around, and very sort of hybrid grey area between a dynamic EQ and a multiband compressor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that a lot of people like are moving over. It seems like, just from listening to some other pro producers here in Sweden, that a lot of people are like moving over from multiband compression to dynamic EQs instead, because I mean in a sense they're doing something similar, or have been using them in a similar fashion. I like the dynamic EQ in Isotope, but I used the exciter a bit as well, just and I'm not entirely sure. Like I get that it. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Like if you would call it the exciter, if you would call it like a saturator or something, what it technically does.
Yeah.
But like you in Isotope, you have the different types, the diodes.
I've had a lot of luck with that in the past. It's been really nice. And again, because that's multiband.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Instead of EQ, if you're trying to get, say, like a richer upper mid, like around 2K, some kind of thing, it's sometimes nicer just to saturate it a tiny bit. I think I did like a little bit of exciting on like just a very small bass down in the bass. I think like somewhere around 100 to 200 or something. Just kind of and where like the synth bass, where I wanted to bring it out a little bit more, just kind of those maybe like 150, 200 hertz, bring it out a little bit more, and then I think I did, if I don't misremember, like around like 2K, 3K, somewhere around that, and just added a little bit. I like that it has these different types also that you can use. You can really listen to which type sounds musical for your song, like what fits, like what adds interesting character. I enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, I'm just, to be honest, like for me it's a lot of like I'm really trying to take it more seriously and spend more time with it, even though I don't really want to. I don't think I ever want to like work and do mastering for anybody else, but it's good fun taking the time, especially now that we're stuck at home so much. It feels like it's a good time to like start looking up, like, okay, what does this really do, and like really look into the plugins we have and take it a little slower. So I think I did, for this new song of mine, I think I did
probably did five or 6 different masters for it.
Okay.
And I just A/B'd. I think for me it's a good process, because it's like I can also then, before I decide on the final master, I can always like bring up all of them in Ozone, and I just A/B between the different masters to see if there's something that I wanted from one of the other masters, or if I'm happy with the last one.
Isotope's great. I've pulled up the exciter just to visually cue myself as you brought it up. Yeah, I find that the tube exciters are a little bit too harsh at the mastering stage a lot of the time. The amount goes from 0 to 15, and I find 3 to be the magic number. And I will start with an amount of 3 out of 15 on the sliders across all the bands and adjust from there. Of course, you've got mixes on all the bands, so it can be in parallel. The warm setting always works in subtle amounts to just kind of glue and bring things in.
Yeah.
Tape, not for everything. I think there's this.
No, the tape one is really
is this magic thing, and it is, and I love it, but not for every single master.
It doesn't. It really doesn't sound good on some stuff. Like it's very. No. It has a very distinct. I agree with you that the warm one and the analog one, I think, are often sounding really good for me, at least.
The other nice thing is the mid side. So before you get into any actual stereo imaging, you can image within the exciter itself. Because if you think, I'll just make the highs a little bit warmer or a little bit of tape saturation just on the sides, just in the high band. It just adds this kind of air, certainly in headphones around the ears. It's lovely. The main thing in Isotope, though, is the little ear icon that level matches the input and output. So as you bypass on and off, you're not tricked by it being louder. The other thing in there that's nice at the start, if you're doing it all in Isotope, is the vintage tape machine. And and I think a little bit of drive, I'm talking 1 or 2 dB, not much. Right at the start, always works, and turning the harmonics up a tiny bit. That works really, really well, more so than the tape in the exciter section for some reason, to my ear.
I think that the other one, the one you're describing, that one, I think it was Jeremy, Redmin's recording Jeremy, who recommended it, that I should use it more. I didn't use it on this track, but I've used it on previous tracks, just adding a little bit of character to the overall, and like, I don't know, like making it shine a little bit more. It's
a nice tip as well I got from a live engineer that's done huge world tours for massive pop and rock acts, is to have a super low ratio, and this could be for a mix thing or a mastering thing, and then bring the threshold down very low. So rather than having a threshold where you're just catching the peaks or the more dynamic parts of the track, the louder parts, you literally sit the whole thing in compression for all the time. It's not kind of bouncing in and out, it's just it's sat there, but with a ratio of even like 1.1 to 1 or 1.2 to 1. So very subtle, few dB of reduction. But when you time the attack and release, and it's just kind of sat and just rocking in time with the music, it's a really lovely glue. Nice thing you used to be able to do in Logic as well. I've not tried in 10. You could probably do this in Cubase as well, but maybe not Ableton. In Logic, you used to be able to set up what was called an environment, which is almost separate to the workspace. And my friend would go on and put an overdrive on every single analog input from his sound card with just a drive of 1 and a compressor similar to this, like 1.1 to 1, 1.2, just to do like 1 dB of reduction. And it was so subtle across every channel. I remember at the time when I didn't know I was doing as much, like, well, why are you bothering? Because 1 dB of drive is nothing, and you're barely touching that compressor. And he was saying that because he couldn't afford all the gear that he would use, I couldn't go into the studio with all the nice analog gear. He was trying to just model that behavior of physical circuits, that if I can just like touch it, almost like give it a little pat on the bum on the way in, was how he worded it. If I can do that on every single input while I'm recording, everything's just kind of touched a little bit, very nicely, very subtly. And his mixes that he was doing at home outside of the studio, at least they started to sound better, which probably is experience growing as much as anything. But another kind of tick for the lots of subtle things adding up rather than, you know, one heavy-handed process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's where I am at. It's a lot like, I know some of the theory, and you know, you've of course read the guides and watched the tutorials and all that stuff, but I feel like I'm in this space where I think many are, where it's a lot about like starting to experiment and trust your ears and like trying to figure out like, and something I noticed a lot when I've started to use multiple speakers more and switching back and forth is like how is energy retained in the song, like how's the vibe translating to different speakers, you know. I go downstairs with a master of the track and I listen. I have like this big speaker that is a stereo speaker, but it's everything in one. And it's also really good, like interesting test to see like how does it translate, because that speaker, if you're messing up the bass, you know, you'll hear it in that speaker because it's so boomy. But yeah, just listening for the very small things, and like you say, like not doing I feel like when I was before I did the big sweeping thing and a lot of compression, and I overused multiband compression a lot. But I'm really trying to focus on like listening in and like, okay, maybe just, I think with this track, frankly, I added the exciter. I just added like 1 or 2 dB. And with the bass enhancer or bass focus plugin, whatever it's called in iZotope, I just added just a little bit of contrast, it's called, which to my ears sounds like it brings out transients a little bit more. I'm not sure if that's what it does, but just puts a little bit more emphasis on the bass. And then just I think like 1.5 dB, but it was very subtle. But when I A-B'd, because I did the master without that, and I A-B'd with my new master with those small changes, and it's very interesting. Like I feel like I'm definitely like a novice, like I have so much to learn, but it's starting to trust your instinct and go with what sounds good to you is I think is a very key part.
Yeah, speakers is a big thing. I did a recording session with a band I was playing guitar in, and in a studio that had recorded Nightmares on Wax, Not Alone by Olive, which is a big dance hit in the 90s. Big studio, really, really talented engineer called Bruce Wood. And he had just a small pair of JBL that looked more like computer speakers than monitors, but they were really just like small 3-4 inch monitors in his kitchen, or the downstairs kitchen where the studio was. So when we were recording, it was like, let's just take a break, let's go grab a cup of tea, just kind of ear refresh. Let's not, hammer the audio all day, every day. We were in there for 8 days, kind of 8, 9, 10-hour days each day.
Yeah.
And you'd hear so much when you went in, turn the kettle on, and the kettle's boiling, the kitchen's all hard surfaces. Yeah. It's a very poor acoustic environment, but he would play the audio through that we just mixed or recorded. And you heard so much in that environment. I think having which is kind of where the old Auratone Q monitors come from, and other forms of monitor references. I think you need to hear it really badly. What you hear outside the room is an interesting test too. Turn the speakers up a little bit, shut the door, and go into another room, or how it travels through the house. And if you're downstairs and you're like, I've been downstairs with the speakers loud and you can hear the kick and bass drum fighting. Way better than when I'm in the room, because that's the energy that's coming through the floor.
I actually have in my kitchen. I have 2 Logitech speakers, like not that big. I have them as kitchen speakers. So I always and the kitchen. My kitchen is like 4 by 4 meters with the hardest walls you can imagine. So the echo, like the room reverberation, is like super annoying. So everything you listen to in that room sounds really shit. But it's actually very nice to sort of test your mix and see if it sounds, if it's bearable, and if something stands out way too much in that shitty acoustic situation. I use it a lot actually. And yeah, I saw that somebody said also that the mono switch. Yeah, I love the mono switch.
Mono.
Yeah.
YouTube. It's funny. I made a YouTube demo of a Erica Synths filter, I think it was, and I had a bad output module. I'm not going to name the company that made it. That you always use to get out onto jacks.
Name and shame.
Into my recording setup. What it did when you just plugged into the left-hand side, it would normal the left across to the right input. So you'd have a stereo signal, still mono, but on both jack outputs and in both ears if you plugged headphones into it. But what it did was flip the phase as they went across. So of course they're going to cancel out with each other. And someone sent me a message saying, "Hey Ben, you've put a demo up and it's literally just your voice. I think you've muted the modular audio." So I went all back through the project. No, I haven't. I'm listening to it on my computer. It sounds fine. I'm listening to it on the laptop downstairs. It sounds fine on YouTube. I took it unlisted straight away because I was scared it was wrong. But I was watching it everywhere and listening like, no, it's right. It's fine. I can hear everything. And I went, "Where are you listening to it?" And they said, "My phone." So I looked into it and the YouTube app was mono for a long time. I'm not sure if it still is. But so what was happening was I had a mono vocal mic and stereo from the modular, but through this bad output module, so it flipped the right-hand phase. So what YouTube, the app, was doing on the phone was obviously just the flipped version just cancelled it out, and it just left my voice. So the people are watching on the phone, and I'm just listening to Ben talk, can't hear the gear at all. Complete, because it's just the phase flipped, it gone entirely, not even a tiny bit left, just completely gone.
That's a little funny though. It's a little funny. It's like, yeah,
kind of funny but annoying.
Yeah, annoying as hell, but it's still like very weird. And I can imagine if you've left the video up, you'd have like people fighting in the comment section. Like, I can hear everything clearly. The people watching on like a computer, and the people watching on like a phone or something would be like, I can only hear Ben's voice. People would have been so confused.
I could hear it when I put headphones on. As well, because you literally feel it like pushing your eardrums opposites to each other. It makes you feel sick. It's a bit strange actually. But yeah, it would have been funny if it stayed there. This heated debate in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. It could be one of those like you see, like, is it blue or is it red or whatever? Those people see things differently. In this case, it was hear things differently. And it's like, what? Can you actually hear the music? I can't hear the music. What's wrong with my ears? Is this like one of those experiments? No, but that's that's funny. That's very funny. Yeah. Awesome. We talked some mastering. That was cool.
I think Simon asked what my prices were. Simon, send me a message if you want some mastering work. We'll talk about it.
Ben's mastering service with a BoBeats discount. It's not something I advertise anywhere because I'm busy. I know. But I'm more interested in kind of albums as well. What the funny thing, listening to anyone interested in mastering should listen to Ian Shepherd's The Mastering Show podcast. Yeah, Ian Shepherd on. I don't know if we have a moderator in the chat, but I can actually link Ian Shepherd in the chat because I actually talked to him the other day on Twitter. Shepherd Mastering. Because I have been following him for a long time, actually on YouTube. I think he does some really good videos.
Yeah, he does. He has the website productionadvice.co.uk. And I first started paying attention when he was posting things like vinyl doesn't sound better than digital. And of course, that's a slightly leading clickbaity title. People go, no, vinyl sounds better, and all the keyboard warriors come out. But not to get into that, and the purpose of his post was that he was comparing a Red Hot Chili Peppers track and saying, let's record through as much of a high-end kind of cartridge and needle turntable as we can and look at what's different from the two. I did a very technical breakdown. And the thing you realize very quickly is the master that gets sent to be pressed to vinyl is a different master entirely. That's why it sounds better, because it's more dynamic. You can't have the vinyl as loud. You can't slam it like the digital file you give a radio station.
Okay, so it's just like before it even goes to...
Yeah, so that was his point. So forget about talking about the format.
It's not the format, exactly.
Entirely.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And it sounded way better being dynamic.
I can imagine.
way better.
Yeah, in general, when it comes to like what sounds better and stuff, I mean, oftentimes I also feel like if you haven't done like blind tests, it's often like pointless to talk about. Like it's if you haven't blind tested it, because it's so much bias in it. Like it's I had a friend, he told me a really funny story. He's an audiophile and he has a ton of vinyl. And he and his friends were gathering at a friend's place, and he had bought like one of those super expensive vinyl players, you know, the actual player, like super expensive. And you know, they were supposed to sit there and like listen to how good it sounds. And you know, they listened to a few records on it, and it sounded good. And he had a really good stereo, of course. And then his mate, you know, they said like, okay, jokingly, like let's A/B. So his mate had a good but cheap. I mean, it's a portable vinyl player. Still like probably a pretty good one, but still not anywhere near the price of the vinyl player that the guy had bought. And they hooked up the portable vinyl player, and they said like, yeah. I mean, the assumption was, of course, that the cheap one you would be able to pick out the difference.
Yeah.
And they listened. And then my friend said that they looked at each other and were like, okay. And the guy who had bought the expensive one was like, oh, that was wasted money. Because everybody liked the portable one better.
There is this thing, though.
So it's weird. It's weird.
A great video, and the guy was super qualified to be talking about like audiophile technology. And there's a great group on Facebook basically making fun of audiophiles, calling them audio fools. Like, why would you pay $1,000 for a speaker cable and all these kind of things? But this guy, the video, I'll have to find it and send it to you, Bo, and then maybe you can paste it into the Discord group or something after this chat. But he says that it's fine if you can't hear the difference. He's not condescending in any way. He goes, if you buy a £500 cable and you can't hear it, I'm not disputing that you can't hear it, but that doesn't mean it's not different. And I'd have £500 cables, you know, let's be realistic. But what he gets into it is just that a £500 cable on a system where every other part is less than £500 is completely useless, because it's the weakest link in the chain kind of description.
But the thing is like, and this is where we get philosophical, Ben. When he says that it makes a difference, the problem is that what we mean by making a difference is relative to
subtle.
And not even subtle. It depends on what we mean. So what I would say, I employ more of a, how do you say, like a human approach than a technical one. So even if everybody knows that there's a technical difference between two things, if say only 1% out of 1% out of 100 would detect it, then it doesn't make a difference. You see what I mean? Like there's a difference. I think this is where the technical community and like the more like artistic community diverges, because technically speaking, there's a ton of things that are, of course, different, technically speaking. But if nobody, or if very, very, very few can pick up on the subtle differences, then it's a difference between that there is a difference, or if it's a meaningful difference, I would say. And I think in a lot of things where audio comes into play, especially when you start to like, you know, go and try and break things down into, for example, like I looked at videos that were talking about, you know, those, the stands. You see the stands on my screen, right? I have stands under my A5Xs, you know, and there's a big debate whether those kind of, you know, the dampening stands that you have under your speakers, there's a big debate whether they make a difference or not. You know how
they're trying to isolate it from
exactly. So and I've seen a couple of people trying to debunk it, and some people who defend that idea. But I actually have a different philosophy when it comes to those stands. For me, I'm less interested in whether it's technically important to isolate the speakers from the table. And for me, it's like with the nice speaker stands, what you get is a better listening position. So so for me in practice, adding them did a big difference in practice for how I could monitor my song, because the speakers weren't just sitting flat on the table, you know, hard, and I could. So now I have
the tweeters near your ears.
Exactly. So whether the science is 100% true, or if it's like, you know, it's a little snake oil, like, I don't know. Like, it's I haven't been able to figure it out from reading, and like the jury seems out on that one. But
there's a great video from, I think it's John Darko, does a lot of hi-fi equipment, with Klaus from HEDD Audio, talking about, it's a little factory talk. It's about 15 minutes long, the video. Again, if anyone wants it, ping me a message somewhere. I'll dig through my browser history and dig these links out. I'll send them to Bo. And Klaus is talking about how there's no measurement for mid-range clarity. They can measure audio distortion. There's usually like a very low distortion of the system, how much it's distorting the wave coming through the components and everything else. But he's saying but it's a feeling. And he's saying there's no, you know, you can't measure clarity. And he talks about this idea of listening to an orchestra. And he says, are you hearing a mix? He uses 2 words in German and kind of says, I don't know what the English equivalent is. And me not speaking German, I don't know either. But his point was that with an orchestra on, are you listening to a blend of an orchestra in a space, which would maybe be like sitting further away in an environment from them? Or can you hear the clarity and definition of each individual instrument? He says there's no way to measure that. You know, you can measure kind of top and bottom frequency responses and frequency curves and the kind of clarity and dynamics of a system. And they're very much on the kind of forefront of technology with that, and their speakers. You can see that in their factory, in the little anechoic chambers they've built to test their tweeters. And it's like you say with the isolating stands, it's how much, if the speakers are on the table will resonate, and you can put your ear against that and hear it. But how much in practice do you hear that?
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly.
It depends how loud the speaker is as well.
Yeah. It depends on the room, I would say also. Like, how much is that amplified somehow?
Most of us are in terrible rooms.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like there's probably worse issues to deal with.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Like, I can't say that I heard any sort of resonation from the speakers, but I did feel like it added clarity to the sound when I put them on the stands. But that is probably just because of the angle. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, so it's always a difference between like the technical realities and how we as humans perceive something. I remember talking about headphones and about this, and how sometimes people are very focused on specs of headphones, sometimes forget that if a headphone doesn't fit properly, the response won't be as good. You know, if you have a pair of headphones and they're leaking, for example, bass will not be as clear, or you won't have the same bass. The bass sound will be affected and stuff like that. So I think a lot of these things are quite important as well, beside looking at the specs and like minute things. I actually did a really cool blind test on a podcast. They played, I don't remember if it was the Juno 60. I think it was Juno 60. I'm not sure. They played anyway files from the original analog, and they had like 2 or 3 different digital reproductions. And I actually nailed the analog one all through the blind test. And that wasn't, I didn't think it was very hard to nail it. But I couldn't nail any of the digital ones, which was from which plugin. But the analog one did sound quite different. But I wouldn't say I think I just went with which one I felt I liked the most, you know? There was just something about it that I really liked, the tone. And I thought, and then I think it was like a slightly more unstable. I don't know, the tone was a little bit more wobbly or something in the tuning, just very, very slight. But that was quite interesting as well. Like it's actually possible to pick it out from a bunch of other. But I wouldn't say like if it sounded better or anything. But it
might be power instability. There's a ton of things.
Yeah. Small things like
when I'm overpowering one of my modular cases. if the 12 volts and minus 12 volts it needs are overpowered and stressed, the power supply won't produce 12 volts. It might do 11 and a half volts or 11 if you're really pushing it. I mean, you shouldn't be stressing power supplies like that. They'll break over time. But I know when I've done it wrong because some of the oscillators drift in pitch. If the power isn't stable enough, all the volt per octave standards and things aren't stable either. And I plug a sequence in and you're like, God, this oscillator sounds really flat. Like, why is it not tracking properly? And you're like, you just listen to the wave on its own, it's kind of wavering, and you're like, all right, okay, I need to turn the case off and move it around. Had the same thing with me and a friend have the same surge panel, surge modular panels. A friend built them both for us at the same time, same components. This is within the last couple of years. He said it was noisy. Like, oh, this buzzing, like I can hear a ground hum. I was like, I can't. And it was this situation, like the Out of Phase YouTube video, where we were so adamant. He's like, can you turn it up and check it? And I'm like, I can't hear anything. It's as silent as any other gear. There's no like ground noise. And I'm going, are you sure you can hear ground noise? Is it the synth? Is it the sound card? Is it the whatever? So he brought it round here. Fortunately, lives fairly close. It didn't hum. I took mine to his place with his, and they hum. So and the only difference in what we were using, because we're using the same sound cards and things, is the power in the house. And it might be that this older synth design, 1973 bit
it's more
surge
sensitive
panel,
there,
just isn't up to modern kind of power conditioning. Which is
I mean, stuff like that can definitely. I have like shit electricity in this house. It's like from the 70s, and it's not. I don't even grounded. Is that how you say it in English? Grounded electricity.
Yeah, but how well the house is grounded. I had mine rewired. When
mine isn't. Mine is like total shit. so I've had problems with a lot of like interference and stuff. But thankfully, like it hasn't affected any of the synths that I've noticed. But some of the audio gear, I noticed that it affects quite a lot. But you know what, Ben? I need to run and get my children.
Yes, I need to get back to this new module. But yeah, great to just hop on and chat.
Yeah, awesome.
It's nice to see in the chat. Someone said that this, as we talk, if someone talks over each other, because I can't see your video live. I've got YouTube open and my video. Sorry if we are speaking over each other.
No, I don't think so.
Really good.
I don't think so.
The Discord handles it really well, so that's great.
There's usually more people crying in the chat if it sounds like ass.
Okay.
But thank you so much for stopping by, Ben. And
cheers for inviting me.
Definitely. And we should definitely hang out some more. And thank you. Ben gave us a little bit of a master class here in mastering, just impromptu.
Well, always learning, always a school day, like I said at the start.
That's awesome.
Thank
you so much.
Talk
Talk later, Ben, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Yeah, Ben jumped in. So I'm hoping to do more of this like improvised live streams during the week. Don't really have any specific live streaming plans for this week. I'm just trying to see where it fits. But yeah, Simon, thank you for stopping by as well. I promised Simon that I'll have him on this stream sometime soon, and that'd be awesome. We have to figure out a fun topic, or if we're just gonna talk random stuff, that's fun too. So thank you for stopping by. I need to run now. I'm actually late to pick up my children. Yeah, if you want to support the stream, what I do on YouTube, there's links in the description. During these weird times, I'm gonna try and stream as much as possible. My new track, Frankly, will be out soon. It's out on Patreon now. It will be out in a couple of days on the other platforms. I'll do some kind of release thing about it. But let's see here. Ben is linking something maybe. Yeah. Thank you so much all for stopping by. I hope to have more guests on later in this week. Keep streaming during the isolation times. And hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.